This is a video on upgrading boxcar kits that can rival in detail with the very detailed premium ready-to-run items from suppliers such as Intermountain, Cady, and Walthers Premium. My layout is trapped in the 1950s era, but many of the techniques can be applied to more modern eras. I wanted to portray the subtle difference in boxcar shades of red, Tuscan, and brown. These cars are all of fallen flags that we should remember. Every boxcar in this string was built recently at about one car a week rate. The beginning point for each model was a undecorated kit of Athearn Blue Box, CB&T, Titchy Train Group, or Front Range Origin. Most of these kits were bought on eBay since they are no longer in production. The Titchy Train Group still makes their kits, and they can be ordered direct by the convenience of a phone call. My favorite road is the old Sacramento Northern Electric line through the Oakland Hills, so I began to closely study the origin of the boxcars seen on their trains in the 1950s. It's good to try to replicate your modeled road's consists to portray the era and region of operation accurately. This is a good idea even if you just buy ready-made cars that are already decorated. Fortunately, I have access to hours of vintage films used in our video productions to use as reference material. Also, you might note that the variety of shades of Tuscan boxcar brown and freight car red vary a lot. Also, the variation of roof height and door sizes is also very mixed. I once made most of my cars from Blue Box 40 and 50-foot riveted side boxcars, and the other brand kits helped make the overall look much more varied. The 1950s was an era of bolder train names and slogans, even on the common boxcars. The appeal to me is the full-size ladders and roofwalks that would be missed by the 1970s, and I don't like the newer plug doors. I do like a mix of 40 and 50-foot cars and some double-door models of my era. This 50s Santa Fe train at Colton Junction reveals that only one boxcar is any color other than the reddish or brownish persuasion in most of the trains of that era. A lone Boston and Maine blue boxcar is the only exception in this train out west. Even into the late 1950s, you could still see some wooden outside braced boxcars from the World War I era in service, although they had been rebuilt several times by this time. So let's start with a Titchy Train Group kit of that type of car. This car started as a United States Rail Administration First World War design, a single-sheathed boxcar, outside braced they call them, that by occasional upgrading and modifications during the Depression era somehow made it into the 1950s. All of the Titchy train kits have separately applied details, such as ladders and grab irons. The decals are an option. I prefer to use decals from K4 or sometimes old Champ decals. For paint, I use True Color paint thinned a little with an airbrush. Well, this thing should be weathered if portrayed in the 1950s. They were years beyond any paint refresh by then. Titchy also makes excellent 40-foot steel boxcars with riveted sides and with the same construction methods. Here's one being finished up with trucks after being painted and decaled. This one has the underframe and details substituted with a set made by Central Valley. More about that special edition a bit later. You can see how bare the sides are waiting for real grab irons and ladders to be applied. One option is to mask the unique bottom framework as it appears so you can have the look of other variations can be had by applying some 10,000ths thick polystyrene strips as shown here. Here's a finished example of a CB&Q car with the bottom skirting added. The Titchy kits have separate ends that have vertical strips with indications of where to drill them for holes to contain the metal grab irons. The kit comes with phosphor bronze 18-inch grab irons. They seem to be the same as A-line parts. The separate ends are added, but the mating parts must be dead flat to not reveal a seam. I use 400 grit and then 1000 grit sandpaper. Test as you go along. The ends are drilled to accept the individual grab irons. I used a number 78 drill. The car ends have dimples indicating the points to drill. The other side has dimples for the side grab, and the bottom sill has dimples indicated as well. You can buy blank ends from Titchy's online catalog if you want to use brass ladder stock from Precision Scale. I use MEK to bond the ends in place. Tamiya makes a good glue for this type of plastic as well. Make double sure everything is square and aligned before you add the glue. Glue one side at a time and then the roof line. I snip off these parts to help clear Katie number 143 coupler boxes later. I make sure the area is flat and clean. You can piece together the kit's parts to build up the underbody complete with full brake details, but there is a substitute that I use. I prefer to standardize on Central Valley's number 1000 floor and frame kit. It's easier for me to use and it helps standardize how the trucks and couplers will mount. This underbody kit has a floor and separate frame and truck bolster set with remarkable full brake piping already built up. It saves a lot of time compared to the various brands of kits such as CB&T, Front Range, and others. So now we will build up this subassembly that works for all of those brands. In some cases, the width of the floor and the frame parts may need to be narrowed to fit the body. In the case of Titchy train model, both sides of the Central Valley floor are narrowed by 68 thousandths of an inch. The frame has these runners, both removed too. The Athearn Blue Boxcar is the only one of the group that does not need to be narrowed. First, a diversion on mounting the trucks to the floor's frame. These Katie metal sprung trucks have mounting holes for a number 2 screw. I drill the trucks out for clearance to a number 440 screw. I use 440 Allen head cap screws as a standard. I don't like the cheap self-tapping screws so common to many kits that just bite into plastic. In many cases, the modeler installs them in an odd angle, and they wonder why their cars favor leaning to one side and have problems going through switches. I have even experienced this problem with factory-built expensive freight cars. I remove the built-in coupler pockets so that I can use Katie snap-together pockets from the Katie 143 coupler set. Note that I cut the magnetic drop-down part off the couplers. I no longer use that method of uncoupling. I press brass inserts with 440 internal thread into the center of the truck's bolsters using heat from the tip of a soldering iron. The inserts are pressed flush with the surface of the truck bolsters to maintain the correct ride height of the car. First, the bolsters' holes must be opened up with a number 22 size drill. That's 157 thousandths of an inch diameter. I do this on a drill press to ensure a true vertical hole. Go slowly so that the bit doesn't snag and damage the part. Now the heat is applied by inserting the iron's tip into the top of the screw. This takes a while before the brass part begins to sink down. Try to keep the screw upright in both axes. Once the brass insert is flush with the bolster, you have a few seconds to nudge the screw around for the final vertical alignment. Here's an end view of the floor mounted into the body. You can see the Katie coupler mounted on a white plastic pad of 30 thousandths of an inch thick plastic to make the coupler height on the rails optimum. Once that is established, you can screw everything down permanently, but don't glue the floor in place just yet. When I want operable doors, I don't use the weights provided for in the kit. They are basically extremely large metal nuts. I use lead segmented weights of 4/4 ounce segments on a 40-foot car. Don't forget to glue the lead weights in place on the floor with something that will never lose its grip. I always use Walther's Goo, but do leave clearance for the truck mounting screws to fit between the lead 1/4 ounce weights. This is how the floor should be seen in the doorway when everything is in the right level. By the way, if you want to have the doors open, you should paint the wood plank flooring in a combination of brown, grayish black with streaks of earth color before you glue the floor in place. Before you glue the floor in place, you also need to install all the side grab irons in place with a bit of CA glue applied from the inside. After the CA glue kicks in, you can snip the excess wire length off from the inside. Prepare the two ends with their grab irons and the tack boards. Study the plans and any prototype photos you have. The brake platform, brake wheel, and brake staff are only on the B end of the car, so I use Titchy Train Group Phosphor Bronze 15 thousandths inch thick wire as substitutes for the plastic brake staff. Here's the way to orient the floor and have the brake cylinder point in the right direction toward the B end. To make smooth sliding doors, I used a length of 1/16 of an inch square angle stock to form a pocket for the top end of the door flange to slide in. For the bottom of the doors, I used a pair of angle bits cut from brass ladder stock to retain the bottom of the floor. In this next view, you can see the front and back of the door to notice the CA glued brass bits installed in the drilled holes through the low-hanging simulated door rollers. The top of each door has a 10 thousandth inch thick strip bonded to the top that fits in a groove formed by the angle stock. This view of the doorway shows a 15 thousandths of an inch thick phosphor bronze wire with bent ends installed in the bottom sill, which is spaced out to accommodate the two brass bits in the gap. This is how smooth the door operates when everything is right. I painted the boxcar body and underbody with an airbrush using thinned paint from True Color before the roofwalk was installed to make sure that the paint would be under the roofwalk. The doors were painted off the car and installed later. This 40-foot car roofwalk from Katy comes in pairs to make two cars. They are made in a flexible plastic. The bottom projections can be snipped off. To help alignment, I left the centermost projection in place, and I drilled an accommodating hole in the exact center of the mounting rib. These 30 thousandths of an inch thick pads were bent and glued to the roof at both ends to add a better support. When the glue was fully set up, I sanded the bent pieces a little bit flatter. I used a toothpick to apply gap-filling CA glue to the center rib and aligned the roofwalk end to end before the glue set up. After a 20-minute wait, I glued the roofwalk toward the ends in groups of 3 at a time, and I added a weight to keep things flat for 15 minutes per group. The end platforms were the last to tack down. Here's the installed roofwalk, straight, with overhang equally on both ends, and the little 2 tabs on the end platforms are CA glued to the roof sill line. The ends of the roofwalk have a pair of fragile, small struts that need to be handled with care, and they are CA glued to the car ends as shown here. Decals for this model, and many more lately, have come from K4 Decal Company. They have many decals for freight cars dating back to the 20s and into the 1950s that I can't find anywhere else. First, I add a coat of either Testors or Tamiya clear gloss coat to the paint to help the decals blend into it. The decals were cut out and water-soaked and then applied using microscale microsol to help the decals adhere to the model. Small positioning changes can be made by using a fresh toothpick. Any areas where decal segments lay over a seam of rivets, microset can help them snuggle down over those details. After drying overnight, you can use a spray can of dull coat to kill the shininess and look more like railroad paint. And incidentally, if you use very old decals that disintegrate in water, you can coat the top surface with this product and use the decals the next day when they are dry again. I just brush it on, and it works very well to rescue all the old Champ decals I have that were bought decades ago. So the new boxcar count is now 20 different fallen flag railroads when they were common in the 1950s. The Titchy train group cars are a fine source for creating great-looking models. I've also used some of the old Athearn Blue Box undecorated kits to make some boxcar variations. They need some different modifications to get rid of all the molded-on details, and I'm planning on a video of those models soon. Thanks for watching.